thunder and lightning out there?
I didn't see any. I was over at Bill Kelly's this afternoon. They had the pool going and everything, but
Oh, nice.
no, there was a lot of thunder, but
We had another game in Easton and it got called because of the lightning.
my
Started at
nephew played.
5.
My nephew's son played there.
So
3
beautiful.
o'clock.
Oh, today?
Yeah,
What age?
with the Danbury team. I don't know, 7-year-old, 8-year-old.
Oh, okay. It's really beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Cynthia, are we live streaming, good to go?
Yep, do you have him open?
Yes. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock on Monday evening, July 3rd. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This evening we have myself, First Selectwoman Tara Carr present, both of our selectmen, Harry Shaker and Steve Dunn, as well as Attorney Marini, who is on the phone this evening, Dennis.
Sorry,
Attorney John Marini.
who? Okay.
He's a partner of the firm and he's done work for the town before. Attorney Kokinos was unavailable this evening. Also, our controller, Marcia Marion, is unable to attend this evening. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Loretta Donovan.
I don't know if that's on. Just might want to check it.
I don't think how you do it. It is on, but for some reason it's not that strong, but it is on. I just changed the volume down.
Loretta Donovan, 42 Camden Shores Road. Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts. I speak this evening as an individual and represent no one but myself. As you will note on the agenda, we will be dealing later with an issue from the Board of Ethics, and I'm referring to that as I speak. I'm humbled by the commitment of the Board of Ethics to resolving the WPCA's ethics issues, which I raised, and I appreciate their recommendations. I'm grateful for the courage of the WPCA staff who shared their concerns with me and opened a necessary dialogue. This investigation confirmed the concerns expressed in my complaint. Ethics is a quality, not a quantity. Either you have it or you don't. We have witnessed a blatant and systematic misuse of public funds. To think otherwise is naive. I learned that some of our officials would like to overlook what they see as a small transgression, as the amounts of money and resources don't seem substantial in the complaint. They don't seek restitution. They expect things to go on as they are. They don't see the broad implications or the loss of public trust inherent in these actions. They don't get the role of the Board of Ethics, the significance of governance and policies, the need for validating information in the face of alternative explanations, the value of whistleblowing, avoidance of retaliation, and our accountability to our citizens. When we peel back the impression that appointments equal competence and integrity, what becomes clear is that we're acting on the belief that someone, somehow, is preparing volunteers for their municipal roles. In fact, only a few boards have required training. If we asked any of them to take a 10-item quiz on our town charter, ethics, procedures, and board functions, I doubt many of them will pass it. It's time to make some changes. If an appointee has been identified by the Board of Ethics as having misused funds, deal with that person. Don't backpedal and cast blame on commissioners who have no leverage. When new board members are appointed, orientation should be required. Continuing members need to be updated on roles and rules. Develop a handbook for chairmen and officers, and another for members. This experience is a great time to pivot. I see this as a turning point for Brookfield. don't miss the opportunity to rise to a new, more excellent level of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't, is this
Rich
Rich?
Rich
Is it-
Saluga.
Rich Saluga.
Good evening, Rich Saluga, 32 Great Heron Lane. I found the ethics report an interesting read for several reasons. One, you might recall that I brought to your attention a few years ago. The ethics report seems to indicate that there's a real need for oversight of the WPCA. And I had brought to your attention a few years ago concern that the assessments that the WPCA was putting on properties was inequitable, and particularly for the Oak Meadow complex down the road from where I live. They were being charged a sewer assessment, which is supposed to be based on the property value, which was higher than mine. And where I live in Newbury Village, the property values are almost twice as high as Oak Ridge. So I couldn't figure out, why are they getting charged more money for a sewer assessment? Again, not that I was looking to pay more, I just couldn't figure out why they were paying more than we were. I know John Lucas and Marcia Marin said they were going to look into that situation, and they had some concerns about the WPCA as well, in terms of their assessment. So I don't know whatever happened with that. Again, I'm not a member of Oak. I don't live in Oak Meadow. I was there really just to speak as a resident and just to point out what I thought was inequitable. The other interesting thing I found in the ethics report were similarities to where I live, because the chairman of the WPCA happens to also be the president of the Newbury community where I live. And some of the same things that the ethics report was pointing out are things that we're finding in our community. Things like spending money without approval, hiring people without any kind of notification to the community, hiring a relative of a board member without any indications of conflict of interest. So I found it interesting that I'm reading about this ethics report for the WPCA, and I'm feeling like I'm reading about my own community. So I really think that, and I congratulate the ethics people board for bringing up this issue and raising the issue of oversight. I think it's really important for the town to really take a hard look at the WPCA.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Anybody else? No?
Sorry. Can I have myself to Nelson Mel's, 1 Great Heron Lane? A couple things. One is I'm chairman of the WPCA, and the issue of the High Meadow project was dealt with in great detail, and Mr. Saluga was sent a detailed letter from the WPCA attorney explaining how it went down, and so it was addressed. And the whole issue of assessments are rather complex and convoluted, but we are following state law to the letter, and so it doesn't allow a lot of wiggle room. As far as the ethics thing, there was no misappropriation of money. There was nothing of that nature. It was a complete mischaracterization. I think the ethics committee, they didn't follow standard protocol, and it just seemed to me that, and so depending on the reaction, they're not going to prepare a response until until the Board of Selectmen has some sort of reply. So otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels. So anyway, there was a 10-page brief defending it that I'm not sure if you have that. Well, there it is. And the whole idea that it was a complete mischaracterization of the situation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Alright, moving right along to the agenda, we have our announcements. This month's coffee will be held on the 29th from 9 to 10 at Chick-fil-A. And we'd like for people to stop by if they have any questions, concerns, anything that they'd like to share, discuss, or otherwise. Not this past month, but the month before, I was by myself, didn't have a single resident show up, and a couple of weeks ago, the end of June coffee ended up similarly, although the coffee shop was closed down for several weeks, so that ended up not happening. But anyway, we look forward to the end of July. Our vacancies remain. We have one available on the Arts Commission. Our Energy Advisory Board has 2. Inland Wetlands have 2 alternates and 1 regular. The Housing Authority has 1 vacancy. The Still River Greenway Committee has 3. The WPCA has 2 alternates. The 4 there, what does that mean,
I don't know.
Cynthia? Okay, I think
That's
that's
a
an
typo.
error on the agenda. So 2 alternates I'm tracking for WPCA and 1 on the Economic Development Committee. Item B for our correspondence, we had several as listed. Item C, as I mentioned, our controller, Marcia Marion, is unavailable this evening, but she also had nothing to report because she gave her report last Monday when we had a special joint meeting of the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, where we reviewed the budget versus actuals through the 26th of June, so we were able to do those transfers. Moving right along to our new items, one of which was mentioned by some members of the public this evening, the first being the WPCA. And I'm hoping by now the both of you have been able to read the ethics, Board of Ethics recommendations that were addressed to us on the 9th of June. This is really important to me because it brought to light a lot of the things I've been finding during my tenure, which is a lack of written policies and bylaws and any kind of guidance that these boards and committees and commissions are so desperate to have as parameters for how they're supposed to function. And when we have organizations across town that either don't have policies or don't have bylaws, or that are very dated, some of the things I'm finding, these policies and bylaws are decades old and need to be reviewed, either written from scratch or updated, and clearly the WPCA is lacking those things. So I just wanted to kind of bring this to your attention, and there's really no action here. It's just a matter of taking the Board of Ethics recommendations and ensuring that these things happen, and as a resident said, that we address them and fill the gaps, and that we do try to strive for a new level of excellence because things have been neglected for many years. Does anybody have anything to say
yeah,
about any of that?
My not issue, but I've read through the 3 pages that we have. From what I understand, there's 10 or 20 pages in this report. I have read through this. Our agenda is available to us on Friday. I wasn't able to get here. I got it today. We have someone speaking, say, of a mischaracterization. So I would just like to not have to make a recommendation, not really knowing thoroughly the information. And I would, not that I'm saying I don't want to make the recommendations, I just need more information, more time to digest it and get some more input on what actually will happen.
Well, I didn't see a recommended motion here.
There's no
Yeah,
motion,
there's no motion.
action that I would like to take. It's
Yeah.
just on the agenda so that we could address it as a board and make sure that we're all understanding this correspondence that we received from the Board of Ethics regarding their recommendations for how the town should function vis-a-vis the WPCA. So on page 1, they recommend 2 items pertaining to some of the things that are happening over there. On the second page, they recommend 3 things to address purchases. They need a purchasing policy, which they either have or it needs to be updated or they don't have, I'm not sure. And then other general recommendations, which there are several.
On this, I agree with Harry. I'd like to look at this and think about
Sure.
this, but I have a more, not more pressing, but a more immediate question. The WPCA is a separate legal entity from the town. We have the authority to appoint people to that board, and we have the authority to approve any bonding that they do, which the town has always done. They come to us with the bonding they need. We use the town's good credit to issue the bonds on their behalf. My understanding is that the town has no further oversight or ability to control, manage, direct, or do anything to the WPCA. So why would this be coming before the town's Board of Ethics? I would think that any issues here would be brought before the actual WPCA board and allow them to handle it as they see fit. I'm not sure we have any, as a town, we have any standing here. Now, I agree with you that every board and every single group within town that works for the town needs to be ethical, above board, completely transparent, but I'm not sure we have standing here to even be having this discussion.
So if we have the ability to appoint,
That doesn't mean you have
So
the
this is,
ability to do anything else.
John Marini, City Council, and I understand the question and the concern. I think WPCA certainly does have some independence from the town. Likewise, Board of Education enjoys a certain amount of independence. But legal precedence is pretty clear that even Board of Ed officials, and certainly WPCA officials, are town officials, city officials. So there is some degree of oversight that can be exercised, particularly with the passage of ordinance and other regulations that could in fact prevent and safeguard against misfeasance across really any board, commission, or committee, whether or not it has its own separate budget. So I do think there's definitely some truth to the fact that they're distinct. If they're maintaining their own budget, they're likely a distinct legal entity for the purpose of being sued. But at the same time, I do think they do fall under a very general umbrella as town city officials that could certainly warrant or not warrant, depending on the findings, right? Some sort of intervention by the selectmen.
So you are saying, and you're willing to put this in writing, that the town has legal authority to act on the recommendations of the Board of Ethics rather than refer them back to the WPCA board? And under what
To the
state
extent that-
statutes would that be under?
Yep, to the extent that those recommendations would relate to your authority as the selectman. Obviously, if certain recommendations are regarding to their budgeting or to the way the policy is right in place, it could be more appropriate for them. But that's not saying that the selectmen can't create an ordinance that would directly relate to the WPCA that they would have to follow. So I do think at the end of the day, your board does have the ability, if it so chooses, to pass regulations that would bind them. Then, of course, they could do that themselves as well.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying, but at this point in time, there are no ordinances that do that. You're saying we could create them? So we're gonna create
Yeah.
them and then an ex post facto basis look at this? I'm confused.
If it was warranted to prevent, if, again, this is kind of jumping ahead a bit, because you're taking this report, you're putting it on file, you're not making any decisions on the merits on whether or not, those recommendations are warranted or not. You're not making any findings of fact. But if you were to make a finding that led you to believe that an action your board could take could be of help, could be needed, then certainly you could take that step. There may be other recommendations that are more appropriate for the WPCA to take, and without going into the particulars of what those recommendations are, it's hard to have that conversation. But I'd say at the end of the day, yes, you would have standing to effectuate some legislation that could be that really could be on point and could be helpful.
I agree with you there. We could, in fact, create ordinances for this, right? But the fact is, right now, we have nothing like that.
Likely you don't. Likely you just have, a piece of legislation that creates the WPCA and allows them to function under the rules of the state as a WPCA. But of course, if it was warranted, you could go further.
Yes, we could, but, so right now, you agree with me, we don't have any standing on this without the
I think
creation.
you have standing simply because you're the Board of Selectmen, simply because generally you have the ability to pass ordinances and oversee boards and commissions.
We know that, you said that. We have the ability in the future to pass ordinances. We do not have those ordinances in place right now, right? Am I correct?
No, you don't have any particular ordinances in place other than the one that creates the WPCA to begin with.
Right.
Which is why we're not taking any action tonight. We need to work with the WPCA to ensure that they are, and I understand that they're already working on it, getting their own policies, procedures, bylaws, the things.
What it said. Okay.
I'm
So,
sorry?
I agree with you. I would encourage, and I agree with Harry on this. This is, this is a little bit incendiary, but I would strongly encourage the WPCA to set in policies and procedures. They are more than willing, I think, and more than, the town would be more than willing to help in any way we can.
Yes.
To set any bylaws and procedures, No, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We can't take comments from the public.
You
At
can
the end,
comment
you
after.
make a comment. And not to be rude, but if we let people interrupt, the whole meeting would go. Okay, all right.
So this was just to bring it to everybody's attention that there's work to be done. The WPCA needs, again, what I said out of the gate, their own set of guidelines. How are they doing business? Right now, there's opportunity for individuals to color outside the lines because there's no rules in place. Would anybody like to add anything about that?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add is that, and Harry, I don't know if you agree with this, is to have the WPCA report back to the Board of Selectmen what steps they're taking on this issue, what they see as the problem,
Yeah.
and what specific action steps they're taking, whether it's bylaws, whether it's a review of their financial procedures, whatever they're doing. And again, I know the town can help them with that.
Allison would be happy to do that as well. Let's not forget, she is the director of the WPCA. Mr. Malowitz is the chair of the
Right.
committee. So she's involved with our department head meetings. She meets with me bi-monthly. We're in constant contact. We do talk quite often. I'm happy to report back. She can come. Mr. Malowitz or otherwise, anyone else from the committee is always more than welcome to come and address the board.
Yeah, I'd like to see something back from the WPCA, as an entity, not just individuals on the WPCA board, but the board itself, how they view this and what steps they're taking to make changes. That's what I'd like to see, if we could. We could ask the WPCA board to do that.
The WPCA has been a very interesting entity to me, coming new into government, just because they're, like Attorney Marini mentioned, this quasi-governmental organization that kind of mostly operates on their own. So what is that relationship? I've been asking, do we need an MOU? Are there other things that we should have in place? But I guess, it's just time to kind of address all of it. Okay, and I'd like to make a motion to add another item to our new items, which would be the Brookfield Historical Documents Preservation Grant.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on adding that to the agenda?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I think Cynthia provided you with the
Yeah.
copy. This came in late on Friday. So this is a $6,000 grant that the town clerk was awarded from the Connecticut State Library in order to better preserve our town documents. I would
Yeah,
just-
typically what is done with this is they use it to digitize documentation so people can look it up online. And they keep on going back year after year after year. And maybe in another 30 years, we'll be back to 1950.
So it's pretty comprehensive. I would just need to make the motion that the Board of Selectmen approve
The acceptance
my
of the grant?
signature.
Yeah,
I'll second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Item 7 are updates. I just wanted to touch back on the salary study because it went nowhere after there was no action on it from the board the last time it was on the agenda, and I am told that the Board of Finance will be including this item on their next meeting agenda, as they've asked me to invite the low bidder for a conversation, an interview, if you will, a presentation. And I believe they'll be making the recommendation on who they want to conduct the salary study by their August meeting. Would either of you like to talk any more about that salary study?
No.
No,
All
that'll
right.
be at one of their meetings, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving along to the consent agenda, I'd like to make the motion that the selectmen approve items alpha through delta.
I'll second that.
All right. As far as discussion, I'd like to just address item D, our employee changes. We have some new hires. We were fortunate last week alone to hire 2 new police officers, Ryan Straighten and Joshua Rivera, so we welcome them to Brookfield. And they'll be classmates in the next round at the academy starting on Wednesday. So congratulations, we look forward to their success at the academy. Kali DeStefan was hired as a part-time temporary position in the tax collector's office. She'll be working as a tax aide. Tracy Cahill, we have her since the budget was approved, hired as our new assistant sanitarian, which is great news. Jahil Flores is our new part-time custodian at the library. Caroline Ford will be our new library director, and she'll be starting on Wednesday as well, and she's from out of state, so she's a recent transplant from another state to Connecticut, so we welcome her to the state and to Brookfield. We have Ginny Giovaniello, who will be coming back to us to be working part-time in the building department. She'll also be starting on Wednesday, and they are very backlogged as a result of COVID, and just there was actually an interesting article in the newspaper about building departments across Fairfield County in particular, how they're just inundated, and there's been so much work and people pulling permits, etc. In our county. So our department is not alone in that regard. So we'll be happy to have Ginny back. And then Jason D'Souza, our former fire marshal, he's actually still our fire marshal until Friday the 8th. He has resigned, and I have hired Michael Connors, his deputy, to be our new fire marshal, who will also be starting on Friday the 8th. So we have a vacancy for the deputy fire marshal. Does anybody want to touch on any of the items that we've got under consent agenda?
I'm fine. Welcome back, Ginny.
Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And finally, for item 9, our additional monthly items, we have some appointments for the health department. I just mentioned that Tracy Cahill was hired as our environmental health specialist / assistant sanitarian. The name has changed by the state, so the actual name is environmental health specialist. I put assistant sanitarian because that's what we all know it as. And that date was effective the 1st of July, 2023. Did I make the motion? That is my motion, that we appoint Tracy Cahill.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And similarly, regarding the fire marshal, I'd like to make the motion, that we, the selectmen, appoint Mike Connors as our fire marshal effective Friday, July 8th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And finally, we had a recommendation for a member of the Economic Development Committee. I'd like to make the motion that the selectmen appoint Greg Steiner as a member of the Economic Development Committee with a term beginning today, the 3rd of July 2023, and ending on the 2nd of February 2026, as recommended by the RTC.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a great addition.
Greg's a great guy.
Yep, really nice guy and a lot of history with the town, so that'll be great.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, well, our next meeting will be on August 7th, Monday, and I'd like to wish everybody a very happy and safe 4th of July. Unless you guys wanted to add another public comment to the agenda.
No, I just
If
hope
anybody
everybody has a nice holiday also.
Great. So, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
No, I refuse.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great night, guys.
Yeah, my nephew had a 3 o'clock game. My nephew